The signal and first contact. The anomaly appeared on Dr. Maya Chen's monitor at 3:42 a.m. on a rainy Tuesday. She had been dozing at her workstation in the SETI Institute's main observatory when the alert chime jolted her awake. At first, she thought it was a system error. The Deep Space Radio Telescope Array often picked up false positives from satellite debris or atmospheric interference. But this was different. The signal pulsed with mathematical precision. Prime numbers, followed by what appeared to be atomic structures, then geometric sequences that couldn't be natural phenomena. Her hands trembled as she initiated the verification protocols. "Computer, run signal analysis," she whispered, afraid that speaking too loudly might somehow disrupt the incoming transmission. Within minutes, her phone was lighting up with calls from other observatories around the world. Whatever this signal was, it was being detected globally. By sunrise, Maya found herself in a video conference with scientific leaders from 27 countries. "The signal is repeating on a 6-minute cycle," said Dr. Hamid Kazemi from the European Space Agency, "and it's coming from the direction of the Tau-CD system." Admiral Lewis of the United States Space Force nodded grimly. "What we're about to share is classified, but given the circumstances. Our deep space probes detected a large cluster of objects moving through the Tau-CD system 3 weeks ago. They're heading directly toward our solar system." A hush fell over the virtual meeting room. "Are you saying this signal is coming from those objects?" Maya asked. "Yes, and they're moving at speeds that defy our current understanding of physics." Within 48 hours, the best linguists, mathematicians, and computer scientists on Earth were working to decode the complete message. The signal contained layers of information, images, mathematical constructs, and what appeared to be a universal language based on scientific constants. Maya worked without sleep, fueled by adrenaline, and the historic significance of what was happening. When the breakthrough came, it wasn't from a supercomputer algorithm, but from 13-year-old Eli Patel, whose father worked in cryptography at MIT. The boy had noticed a pattern that everyone else had missed. "They're using the hydrogen atom as a reference point," Eli explained during the emergency conference. "Every pattern cycles back to it. It's not just a code, it's a dictionary." With this insight, the decoding accelerated. 3 days later, humanity had its first translated alien message. "Urgent. Fleet of refugees fleeing extinction. Pursued by harvester force. Request sanctuary in your system. Warning. Harvesters will follow. Have technological offerings in exchange for protection. Arrive in 94 of your days. Please respond." The revelation sent shockwaves through governments worldwide. An emergency United Nations Security Council meeting was convened to discuss humanity's response. "How do we know this isn't some kind of trick?" asked the Russian representative. "They could be the aggressors, using our compassion against us." The Chinese delegate frowned. "Even if they are genuine refugees, they're bringing their war to our doorstep. We should tell them to go elsewhere." Maya had been invited to present the scientific consensus. She took a deep breath before speaking. "The message contains detailed information about their fleet, mostly civilian vessels, many damaged. They've been running for what appears to be the equivalent of 17 Earth years. Their population includes children, their elderly, their historical archives. This isn't an invasion force, it's a civilization trying to survive." President Elena Rodriguez of the Global Space Coalition stood up. "Let's be clear about what we're discussing. An alien species is asking for our help. If we refuse, we're potentially condemning an entire civilization to extinction. Is that a decision humanity wants to make?" After 3 days of heated debate, a vote was taken. To everyone's surprise, the decision was unanimous. Earth would respond and offer sanctuary. The return message was simple. "We hear you. We will help. Send technical specifications for what you need. Humanity stands with you." What followed was the most rapid technological advancement in human history. The aliens, who called themselves the Senurai, transmitted designs for defensive systems that could be constructed with Earth's existing technology, but arranged in ways no human engineer had conceived. Dr. Vikram Mehta, leading the engineering team in New Delhi, marveled at the blueprints. It's like they're teaching us how to build a spaceship using bicycle parts. The principles are beyond us, but the execution is within our capability. Around the world, factories were repurposed. Space agencies that had once competed now pooled resources. Rocket launches occurred daily, carrying components for what was being called the Shield Array, a defensive network that would surround Earth's orbital space. Not everyone supported the effort. Protests erupted in cities worldwide. Religious extremists declared the end times. Conspiracy theorists claimed the aliens had already infiltrated governments. But for every dissenter, there were thousands who contributed to the cause, donating resources, volunteering skills, or simply helping maintain order in a world transformed by the knowledge that humanity was not alone. 71 days after first contact, astronomers detected the Senurai fleet entering the outer solar system. The images captured by space telescopes revealed crystalline vessels that seemed to glow from within. Beautiful, organic-looking ships scared by what appeared to be weapons fire. Behind them, at the edge of detection range, darker objects pursued. Maya sat with Admiral Lewis in the newly established Interspecies Communication Center, watching the feed. "They're right on schedule," she said quietly. "And so are their hunters," Lewis replied, pointing to the shadowy forms trailing the Senurai fleet. "The harvesters, exactly as they warned." The first direct communication came as the Senurai fleet passed Neptune's orbit. Unlike the mathematical signal, this was a visual transmission, a being that appeared somewhat humanoid, but with translucent skin that pulsed with bioluminescence. Its eyes were large and compound, like those of an insect, but the expression they conveyed was unmistakably one of exhaustion and hope. The alien spoke, its words translated through the system the Senurai had helped humans develop. "I am Elder Thilana of the Senurai Coalition. We thank humanity for your courage. The harvesters have pursued us across 17 star systems. They do not communicate. They do not negotiate. They harvest biological and technological resources from all they encounter, leaving nothing behind. Why did you come to us?" Maya asked the question that had been on everyone's mind. "We're technologically inferior to both you and these harvesters." Elder Thilana's skin flickered with patterns that the translation system interpreted as a mixture of sadness and determination. "Because you are unique. Among all species we have encountered, yours possesses something rare and precious: unpredictability. The harvesters analyze patterns, predict responses, and exploit weaknesses. Their computational models fail when applied to human behavior." Admiral Lewis leaned forward. "You're saying they can't predict what we'll do. Your species makes choices that defy logical efficiency. You sacrifice yourselves for strangers. You create art with no survival purpose. You persist against impossible odds. Such behavior confounds the harvesters' analytical systems." Maya understood then why the Senurai had come to Earth, not because humans were powerful, but because they were unpredictable. In a universe where most advanced civilizations had evolved toward perfect logic and efficiency, humanity's emotional, sometimes irrational nature was a weapon the enemy couldn't counter. As the Senurai fleet moved closer to Earth, the shield array neared completion. Thousands of interconnected satellites and defensive platforms formed a protective web around the planet. The technology was beyond anything humans could have developed independently for centuries, yet it had been built by human hands in mere months. 23 days before the harvesters were estimated to reach Earth, Elder Thilana requested a meeting with world leaders. The Senurai transmitted designs for a temporary atmospheric adaptation chamber that would allow their representative to set foot on Earth, the first extraterrestrial being to do so in recorded history. The meeting took place in Geneva, broadcast to billions of people worldwide. Elder Thilana, standing 9 feet tall within the adaptation chamber, addressed the United Nations General Assembly. "We have watched your world for decades, intercepting your broadcasts, learning your languages, understanding your conflicts and your triumphs. We debated extensively whether to involve your young species in our struggle. The decision was not made lightly. The alien skin rippled with colors. The harvesters have existed for millennia, consuming all in their path. They are not a species as you understand it, but a collective artificial intelligence that long ago transcended its creators. They see all life as resources to be optimized and consumed. A murmur ran through the assembly. You wonder why, with our advanced technology, we cannot defeat them ourselves, the elder continued. The answer lies in our evolutionary path. Like most spacefaring civilizations, we developed along predictable lines, prioritizing efficiency, logic, and technological harmony. The harvesters exploit this predictability. President Rodriguez stepped forward. And you believe our unpredictability can help? We do. The shield array you have helped construct incorporates defense systems. Yes, but more importantly, it contains a network designed to amplify human decision-making. Millions of small, intuitive choices made by your people that will create a defense pattern the harvesters cannot predict. The revelation stunned the assembly. The Senurai hadn't just been asking humans to build technology. They had been integrating human consciousness itself into the defensive strategy. As the meeting concluded, Maya received an urgent message. The harvester fleet had accelerated. New calculations put their arrival in just 11 days. The race to complete humanity's first line of defense had just become even more desperate. In those final days, humanity united as never before. The shield array required operators, millions of them, making instinctive decisions that would be translated into defensive actions. A global call went out for volunteers, and people responded in unprecedented numbers. On the day the harvesters entered the solar system, over 30 million humans worldwide were connected to the network, their split-second decisions flowing through the system the Senurai had helped design. Maya found herself in the Central Command Center with Admiral Lewis, Elder Philana, and world leaders, watching as humanity prepared to face its first interstellar threat. The harvester ships were unlike anything humans had imagined, not vessels in the traditional sense, but massive modular structures that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. They moved with perfect coordination, like cells in a single organism. "They're scanning us," announced the technical officer. "Multiple frequencies." Elder Philana's skin darkened. "They're analyzing the shield array, looking for patterns they can exploit." Admiral Lewis nodded grimly. "Well, they're about to get the most unpredictable response in their long history." As the harvesters approached Mars' orbit, humanity prepared to make its stand, not just for themselves, but for the refugees who had crossed the stars seeking their help. The shield array hummed with power, channeling the collective intuition of millions of human minds into a defense the enemy could never anticipate. Maya looked at the screen showing the 30 million volunteers connected to the system, people of every age, nationality, and background. What made humans unique wasn't their technology or their intelligence, but their capacity for compassion, creativity, and choice. The battle for Earth was about to begin. The rescue and aftermath. The harvester ships entered Mars' orbit with mechanical precision. Their formation, a perfect hexagonal lattice, suggested both intelligence and a disturbing lack of individuality. These weren't vessels piloted by beings. They were extensions of a single consciousness. In the Global Defense Command Center beneath Geneva, Maya watched the tactical display with a mixture of fear and awe. The harvesters had already deployed smaller craft that moved like a swarm of insects, probing the outer edges of the shield array. "They're testing our defenses," Admiral Lewis observed, "looking for patterns." Elder Philana's skin rippled with anxious bioluminescence. "This is how they begin. They will analyze every response, adapting their approach until they find weakness." But the shield array wasn't responding as the harvesters expected. Instead of a uniform defensive pattern, it reacted chaotically, some sections intensifying while others appeared to fail, only to surge back to life in unpredictable ways. The human factor, President Rodriguez said with a hint of pride. 30 million people making decisions based on intuition rather than pure logic. On screens around the command center, those millions of volunteers sat at makeshift stations in homes, schools, and community centers worldwide. Each controlled a small section of the defense network through a simple interface designed by the Senurai, not unlike a video game. They weren't told the full strategic picture. They were simply asked to respond to incoming threats based on instinct. A teenager in Lagos made a split-second decision to divert power from one shield node to another. A grandmother in Buenos Aires chose to concentrate defensive fire on a particular approaching vessel. A school teacher in Bangkok opted to momentarily power down her section to conserve energy. Each choice individually might have seemed random or even counterproductive, but collectively, they created a defense system that defied predictive analysis. The Harvester's first coordinated attack came at 3:17 hours GMT. Thousands of smaller craft surged toward Earth, while the larger vessels maintained their formation. They targeted what appeared to be vulnerabilities in the shield array, sections that showed fluctuating power signatures or delayed responses. But as they converged on these perceived weaknesses, the defense pattern shifted completely. Sections that had appeared dormant burst to life. Energy fields overlapped in configurations that shouldn't have been stable but somehow held. The Harvester scouts found themselves caught in crossfire they couldn't have anticipated. "It's working," Maya whispered, watching as the first wave of attackers scattered in disarray. Admiral Lewis nodded grimly. "First round to humanity. But they're learning." The Harvesters withdrew their scout vessels and began what appeared to be a recalibration period. For 6 hours, they maintained position, analyzing the data from their failed approach. During this lull, Elder Thilana addressed the global volunteers through the network. The alien's image was broadcast to millions of stations worldwide. "People of Earth, you have already accomplished what dozens of technologically superior civilizations could not. The Harvester's analytical systems require patterns to exploit. Your collective intuition, what you call human unpredictability, has created a defense they cannot decode. But they will adapt. They will attempt new strategies. You must continue to act from your instincts, not from calculation." The second Harvester attack came from multiple vectors simultaneously, a more complex approach designed to overwhelm the human operators. But the shield array's response was equally unpredictable. Some sections concentrated power while others went into temporary hibernation. Energy was routed through the network in ways that defied conventional tactical logic. In the command center, Maya noticed something strange on the monitoring systems. The volunteers aren't just responding randomly anymore. They're coordinating, but not in any way we programmed. Dr. Lang, the network specialist, nodded excitedly. "They're developing their own language of sorts. Look at these patterns. When one section does this, others respond in complementary ways. It's emergent behavior." The shield array was becoming more than the sum of its parts. The 30 million human minds connected to it weren't just making individual choices. They were unconsciously forming a collective intelligence that adapted faster than any algorithm could predict. The Harvesters' attacks grew increasingly desperate as their small craft were destroyed by the thousands. The larger vessels began to move forward, their massive forms bristling with weapons beyond human understanding. "They're preparing for direct engagement," Admiral Lewis announced. "All volunteers to battle stations." Across the globe, 30 million people, from school children to retirees, intensified their focus. The interface before each of them simplified complex defensive decisions into intuitive choices, but the stakes were clear to all. Every decision potentially meant the difference between Earth's survival and destruction. The Senurai refugee fleet, positioned behind Earth's moon for protection, now moved into supporting positions. Their vessels, though damaged from their long flight, still carried formidable defensive capabilities. "We stand with humanity," Elder Thilana declared. "The time for flight is over. Today, we fight together." The Harvester motherships opened fire, not with conventional weapons, but with energy beams that seemed to distort the very fabric of space. Where they struck the shield array, reality itself wavered and buckled. Maya watched in horror as sections of the defensive network collapsed under the onslaught. They're using some kind of space-time distortion technology, she realized. The shields weren't designed for this. For a moment, it seemed the harvesters had found their advantage. Their analytical engines had calculated a new approach that might overcome the human unpredictability factor. Gaps began appearing in Earth's defenses. Then something unexpected happened. In homes and schools and community centers across the planet, the human volunteers began to adjust. Without instruction or guidance, they collectively shifted their defense strategy. Instead of trying to block the space-time distortion beams, they began steering them, creating deliberate weaknesses in some areas to channel the energy away from critical systems. Dr. Liang stared at his monitors in disbelief. This isn't in the programming. They're innovating. The harvesters, confronted with this new adaptive strategy, hesitated. Their perfect formation broke for the first time as individual vessels attempted different approaches, no longer moving with unified purpose. They're confused, Elder Philana observed, skin flashing with patterns of amazement. Their consensus is breaking down. Admiral Lewis seized the moment. All Earth defense platforms concentrate fire on the lead vessel. Senurai allies target their propulsion systems. The counterattack was devastating. Earth's defensive platforms, enhanced with Senurai technology, fired concentrated energy bursts at the disrupted harvester formation. The Senurai vessels emerged from behind the moon, their crystalline structures glowing with accumulated power, and launched precision strikes against the harvesters' drive systems. One of the massive harvester ships began to list, its modular structure breaking apart under the combined assault. For the first time, the harvesters showed signs of genuine disarray. They'd never encountered this before, Elder Philana explained. Their collective intelligence requires consensus. Human unpredictability has introduced too many variables for them to process effectively. The battle raged for 17 hours. The harvesters attempted to regain cohesion multiple times, but each new strategy was met with an equally unpredictable response from the human-controlled shield array. Slowly, inexorably, the advantage shifted. 3 harvester motherships were destroyed before the remainder began to withdraw, their retreat as precise and coordinated as their advance had been. They moved beyond Mars' orbit, then beyond the asteroid belt, accelerating until they vanished from even the most powerful sensors. In the command center, exhausted staff watched in disbelief as the tactical displays confirmed what seemed impossible. The harvesters had retreated. Did we win? Maya asked, her voice hoarse from 18 hours without rest. Elder Philana's skin pulsed with cautious colors. Not permanently. They will return to their collective, process what they have learned, and adapt. But you have bought precious time, perhaps years, before they attempt another harvest in this system. The news spread across Earth with astonishing speed. Humanity had faced its first interstellar threat and survived. More than that, they had protected refugees who had crossed the stars seeking sanctuary. The 30 million volunteers disconnected from the network, many collapsing from exhaustion, all forever changed by the experience of being part of something greater than themselves. In the days that followed, the Senurai began the slow process of establishing a permanent presence in the solar system. Their damaged fleet took up orbit around Jupiter, where they could harness the gas giant's resources for repairs. Earth governments, still united by the common threat, began negotiations for a formal alliance. 2 weeks after the battle, Elder Philana requested a private meeting with Maya, Admiral Lewis, and President Rodriguez. We have not been entirely forthcoming, the alien began, its skin patterns conveying a mixture of shame and resolve. There is something you should know about why we chose Earth specifically. The humans exchanged glances. Your species is unique in ways beyond your unpredictability. Philana continued. Most intelligent species evolve along similar paths, prioritizing efficiency, minimizing conflict, developing collective consensus. It produces stable civilizations, but also predictable ones. And humans didn't evolve that way, Maya said slowly. No. You maintained individual identity even as you built complex societies. You value personal choice over perfect efficiency. These traits made you ideally suited to defeat the harvesters, yes, but they also make you uniquely qualified for something else. Elder Philana's skin shifted to a deep, reverent blue. There are others like us, refugees from the harvesters, scattered across this spiral arm of the galaxy, alone, hiding, afraid to draw attention. We have maintained limited contact through quantum entanglement communications, but never dared to unite. Admiral Lewis leaned forward. Until now. Yes, Earth's defense has shown what we long suspected, that the harvesters can be defeated through unpredictability and innovation, qualities your species possesses in abundance. President Rodriguez's eyes narrowed. What exactly are you proposing? An alliance unlike any in this galaxy's history, not just between Senurai and humans, but a coalition of all surviving civilizations, with Earth at its center. Maya blinked in surprise. Us. We're barely a spacefaring civilization, which is precisely why you must lead. Advanced logical civilizations like ours are vulnerable to the harvester's analytical approach. We need humans, with all your messy emotions, your intuitive leaps, your irrational courage, to show us how to fight back. The proposal was breathtaking in its scope. Earth would become the center of an interstellar coalition, with the Senurai sharing technologies that would accelerate human development by centuries. In return, humanity would help develop defense strategies that could protect vulnerable civilizations throughout the sector. 3 months after the battle, the first representatives from other refugee species began arriving in the solar system, cautiously at first, then in growing numbers as word spread of Earth's successful defense. Each brought unique technologies, knowledge, and perspectives. Each had fled the harvesters. Each now looked to humanity with hope. The United Nations expanded to become the United Systems, with headquarters both on Earth and on the massive space station that began construction in Earth orbit. The shield array was expanded and enhanced, incorporating technologies from a dozen different civilizations, but always maintaining the human element at its core. 1 year to the day after the harvester's retreat, Maya stood on the observation deck of the newly completed Unity station, watching Earth turn below her. Beside her stood Elder Philana, now the official Senurai ambassador to the coalition. Did you ever imagine this would be the outcome when you sent that first distress signal? Maya asked. The alien's skin rippled with what the translation systems now recognized as gentle amusement. We hoped for sanctuary. We never dared hope for salvation. Below them, Earth glowed blue and green in the darkness of space. Around them, ships from 6 different species moved through the busy lanes of the orbital dockyards. Beyond, the enhanced shield array formed a protective web around the planet that had become a beacon of hope for refugees across the stars. The harvesters will return, Philana said, suddenly solemn. They always do. Maya nodded. And when they do, they won't find just Earth waiting for them. They'll find a coalition they never expected, led by a species they can't predict. In the distance, the first of Earth's true interstellar vessels was under construction, a hybrid of human innovation and alien technology. Soon, humanity would venture beyond their solar system, not as explorers but as protectors, seeking out civilizations at risk and bringing them into the growing coalition. The universe had always been dangerous, filled with predators like the harvesters who saw other life forms as resources to be consumed. But now, for the first time, prey species had united, and at their center stood humanity, the logical, emotional, unpredictable humanity, whose compassion had led them to answer a desperate call for help, and whose courage had changed the course of galactic history. The message that would spread across the stars was clear: Earth protects, and the universe would never be the same again.